Greetings. I am Michael Kahn, author, revolutionist, and I am presenting a little talk today about racism and about blacks, about whites, about the church, in response to somebody basically contesting my words of white privilege. Um, I'd like to address this especially to those who supported Trump and followed many of his words and sayings. Um, and as well also even to blacks who, while I identify as black, they need to hear this also. We need to have a unifying of America. They're talking civil war. The news media on the left wing news media tells you to rebel. The whites are so evil. They're all racist. I'm white. I'm certainly not racist. I identify as black. Most whites are not racist. There is, however, racism promoted in the news media and regular media as well. And that's what I want to address. As well as also, I want to address that blacks are not imprisoned, are not drug addicted, and other problems because of their black character, character racism, of the race. And this is mostly what we'll address. Yes, it is undeniable that an overwhelming percentage of the prison population are black. I've been in prison also, and I know this to be true, but I've also done some research, and I'd like to set the score and unify this nation and even the whole world into basically a unified position against the real evil, and that would be the authorities, the politicians, the news media, and other people causing division intentionally and deliberately so that we don't raise arms against them. What is the way of evil? Divide and conquer. Okay. Let us first go into yesterday's newsletter I sent out. I put some words regarding, basically what the situation is with the white supremacy as promoted by certain people like Trump. And I know you Trump followers are going to say, no, he was not white supremacist. Maybe he wasn't. I don't know. But I do know he was a liar. So let us go into it. And you'll admit that too. You know very well that Trump, he called a national state of emergency, putting it under FEMA jurisdiction. And by that way, we had this shutdown. It wasn't the governors, it was FEMA. The governors pretended it was them. No, it was FEMA, and they had rule over the nation at that time. We also know that Trump gave us Operation Warp Speed, and he promotes the jabs to this day, and we know the harm in them. So, you cannot say anymore that he was good. He had many other wrongdoings. He defrauded the people, 6,000 people with his scam, Trump University, while he was running for president in 2016. It was hardly mentioned in the news media because there's so much against him. They promoted some things, they made up stuff against him that wasn't true, but didn't address his real wrongs. His money laundering of billions aligned with George Soros. His rape of a 13-year-old girl on Epstein's Island. All this is provable. I will attach it to today's newsletter. Trump was, he was an Epstein's Island because he was not against the establishment as he claimed he was. Like every Democrat or Republican politician, he has proven loyalty to the globalist agenda to achieve a significant position. You cannot get any significant political position without proving loyalty to the globalists to their satisfaction. Every politician is an actor. They're all liars. Biden, Trump, Obama, Bush, going back, they all have been. And the ballot machines are owned by the Bush family. They're operated by the CIA. All this other stuff is lies and deceptions and diversion away from the truth. I expose much of this in my books, and I will go on now to address racism. Now, here's what I wrote in yesterday's newsletter. I attached a video showing that a lot of Britain and other countries enslaved Irish people. And I basically said that he, by that way, said that there was no such thing as white privilege because some white Irish people had been enslaved also. And I said that reasoning logic is not with him. There may have been Irish slaves, but how many Irish do we see filthy rich? Not really many of them. Many of them. We see lots of blacks filthy rich? Of course not. Irish and British, because they were enslaved, basically had a harder time getting prosperity. However, blacks to this day have lots of racism going against them, not blatantly, but in many ways, and I'm going to uncover that now. And I'm not calling the majority of white people racist. They are not. Most white people are deceived regarding blacks. They don't know them well, but they are not racist inherently. Character of people is not a racial thing. You don't get a certain character by your race, by your religion, by your nationality. We are all products of what we have seen and heard, the information input, and how we process that information. We are products of what we are learned in school, what we see by our peers, what our parents told us, what our pastors put into us, but mostly by the media through television and other means, and what books we read, etc. We are an information input is what creates us, and the choices we are given and decisions we make, which is also a result of our experiences. Okay, the media has great influence over us. So the reason that he had that white slavery makes that there's no white privilege. Think about it. This guy tells us that because white establishment also enslaved whites, that is not so bad. That my stand is growing stronger daily. All this shows the evil of the white establishment. Now, I notice I don't say the white people, the white establishment. Now, they love having slaves, calling them employees. They have no shame, no remorse over exploiting others. Notice there are billionaires and trillionaires. You don't know about trillionaires, maybe there are trillionaires. Bezos is far from the richest man in the world. The Rothschild, Rockefeller, the British royalty, they're all far richer. They are trillionaires, have hundreds of trillions. The Rothschilds own the federal bank, the national bank of every nation, basically printing up all currencies at the cost of paper and ink and selling them at face value. The Rockefellers owned most of BlackRock and Vanguard. They had Standard Oil. The Rockefellers created the medical system and the education system in America as we know it today, and spread throughout the world, allopathic medical system. They also created the Trilateral Commission and the Council on Foreign Relations and appointed all members. That is where legislation is really made. The politicians are actors. They are liars. They are promoted because of their skills to act and to lie well. The politicians do not legislate. Like I said, the Trilateral Commission does. Rockefeller has thus created America and rules over it in that way. The British family owns over a fifth of the real estate on the planet. The sun never sets on the British Empire. They're filthy rich trillionaires. The Queen of England, well, now she's dead. Charlie makes $360 million a day in interest from all the real estate they own. You don't think he's richer than Bezos? These are the real power holders, the real rich people. They run the world. They run the WHO, the WEF, and all the other agencies. They are the ones in power. Money talks. Money and rest walks. Come on. Now, the people love having slaves, calling them employees. They have no shame, no remorse over exploiting others. If you went to college, you were programmed and indoctrinated to follow their way of thinking and were put deep in debt. With the only way to pay off your indebted servitude is by being employed to make the rich man richer and to further his evil agenda, in which most fields of employment involve cheating or harming some population in some way. The military-industrial complex, the pharmaceuticals, the agricultural industry, which is GMOs, all are harmful. Many people lie. The news media, all the media lies, brings in bad values. These are harmful. If you work for these fields, you are harming other people to make your money. Mankind is made to hurt each other to make a good living. There is no shame in poverty. It is a badge of honor to me. I could have been richer if I'd followed other ways of making a living. If I want to be rich, I could have been. I am poor and wears a badge of honor because I saw through the system. I saw what it was made of. I saw that it is evil. that and if you are a Christian, as I was for several years, no more, but as I was, Ephesians chapter 6 basically talks about how principalities run the world, that people in high places are evil, the devil owns them. That's very true. We battle not against flesh and blood, but against forces of evil. And that's very true, though it is flesh and blood, because people are doing the evil willingly. Our politicians are bought. People, the military, people are paid to do evil, and they do it for that money because they value it. What does money do? It gets you lots of bright, shiny, glittery stuff. You own a nice big house, a new car. How valuable is that really compared to good health, a strong mind, a strong body, and being righteous? Do righteous things and having the pride and confidence that comes with that. Making a strong mind through much reading and cutting through the bullshit, which much of it is. About learning that there's lies out there, much of it is lies and wrong thinking. I have debunked the Bible soundly in my book, The Untold Nature of Christianity. I cut through the bullshit. I debunked evolution in my book, The Angry, Loud, and Clear Truth. I've debunked the political system. I debunked the education system, the medical system in that book. So understand, you need to read things with challenge what you're taught. People in colleges and schools do not challenge the professors and teachers like they should. When you're taught evolution, you should think on your own and challenge and make them prove what they're saying, because they cannot. When you read a book, challenge it. Because they are authorities does not mean they're teaching truth. Because they're professors, because they're authors, does not mean they are teaching truth. Challenge them. Debunk them. Think on your own. Be a free, independent thinker. Read a lot, because all the information you get in the world, all the internet words, there's so much more in books. And off the radar books, like books found in the catalog I went to, African World Books Catalog, had scores of good titles to basically buy and to learn to read and to challenge what you're told. Now, let us go into say they love having slaves that go on there saying, and then pharmaceuticals, the allopathic medical system, the food system, the GMOs that are harmful. Okay, all these things are harmful. Now, this is the letter I got from my friend. And this woman, by the way, is the only person who still emails me from all my old friends and family. I've lost everybody due to my rebellious stand because they're afraid or don't want to interrupt my hard work, which I work 12 to 14 hours a day, 7 days a week for the people unpaid. Now, this is what she says. I wish to just share that my parents' parents immigrated here. My mom's family was on welfare. She was put in an orphanage when young, as her mom couldn't take care of her and her siblings when her dad died. My dad had to quit school to work for his dad. Neither parent got their diploma, yet through hard work they gave us what you mentioned here as if they were somehow privileged. Doug's family was worse. Doug grew up in the streets of the Bronx. No father. Hungry most days, yet through hard work we were able to give our kids what you say we are privileged about. Poverty was a part of both our heritages, yet we got out of it. I don't think that makes us worse than others. Certainly not anything to be ashamed of. Just thought I would share that with you, as there are those of us, many who are immigrants' children, that rose above our situation, not through being white privileged. Then she says love and all that. Now, okay, I see that. My mom also did not have a high school degree until after she divorced my dad, went to college while working full time and raising 2 kids alone, and she did a good job. So I come through that also. Now, just to mention, by the way, this woman, when told me that in her a few decades ago, she lived in Patterson, which is an urban neighborhood, poor city, mostly black. She loved the people. She's not against black people. So what was she doing here, I think? I think she's inviting me to challenge the narrative of there being no such thing as white privilege. By the way, when I knew her, she lived in a wealthier part of New Jersey, in Bergen County, the wealthiest county in New Jersey, in an upscale house. And her husband had built an attachment house by himself, all with beautiful addition, with skilled carpentry. So these are not lazy people. These are not wrong people. She homeschooled her children. She knew the Bible well. So she was somebody who learned and who read and who knew what was on top of things. Her children were respectful, were smart, were intelligent. When they went to college, though they were homeschooled, they surpassed this regular school educated children, even though one of them had a learning disability. These are good people. So basically, she's challenging me. And, having lived in an urban city, a black city, even though she's Caucasian as I am, she was not trying to get away from them when she knew they just got more money, through her marriage and all that. And her children were also in that Patterson as youth. It was not all that long ago. Now, let me go into how I responded to her. If I can find it. Okay, here we are. First of all, I grew up in Bergen County as well, a wealthy county in New Jersey. And when I lived there in the 1960s, when I was growing up, all the blacks lived on one road, Sand Road, an unpaved road. And it was poor, and they were separated in schools, separated in ball fields, everything was separated. And we had, when I was a child, we had a Tanzanian, African revolutionist son was living with us as an exchange student. He was going to Duke University. And while he was sitting in our backyard reading a college textbook, he was arrested by the police. And the police came to me while I was in school and said, is there a black man living with you? I said, yes, there is. And he said, okay. And they left. They did not free him still. They then, when my mom came home from work, they asked her, is a black man living with you? Yes, there is. What is his name? Kagoma Malema. I remember now, I didn't remember as a child. They still did not free him. And when my dad came home, he raised hell. They finally released him, and my parents had to fight with the police for months, and they never apologized. So understand, my family has been, understanding the truth for since I was a child. And there is, as we know, slavery in the United States. In my book, Angry, Loud, and Clear Truth, I showed that Lincoln himself, after freeing the slaves after the Civil War, still said that no black man was equal with a white man and that they could not live with the white people. This is Lincoln talking. So basically, yes, the 13th Amendment freed slaves, but said there could be slavery in prison, which is what happens to this day. There are prisons incarcerating people and forcing labor in those prisons. And many of those prisons have 3 strike law. Your third conviction, even if it's for stealing a pack of gum, you still have life in prison or decades in prison for your third offense. And then they have forced labor in those prisons. And they pay pennies, literally like 20 cents an hour. So there is slavery even today. And you should know the majority of prison population, they are black. Because black's a bad character, we're going to explore that. Now let's go in first. This is my response to Jerry. Have you ever heard of Jim Crow, which happened at that time, 1950s, 60s, 40s? There was Jim Crow. Blacks had to be in the back of the bus. They could not drink the same water fountains as whites. This is in the South. And they were not paid as well for their jobs. They would work hard and not get anywhere. Now, what do we have today? A whole different issue. The blacks are not working hard like slavery, not being paid very little for minimum wage. Now they're given privilege by the white community, and whites are feeling jealous over it in many avenues. They say that blacks are now privileged because of the history. That was these grants and these privileges were given to blacks for a reason, because they've been oppressed and exploited for many decades, for centuries. And this is to give them a step up. Now, you must remember something else, though, that while 13% of blacks, 13% of the of the U.S. population is black. 13% of the U.S. population is black. Only 3% of the college population was black. So why? Why don't blacks go to college even when it is given to them for free? Now, this is something we need to explore. Remember, blacks have been enslaved. They have had Jim Crow. They have been shown in the news, in Hollywood and other media, as being stupid and ridiculous. Sanford and Son, Moving Up. These are programs I watched as a child, ridiculing black people, portraying them as idiots, as foolish. And Driving Miss Daisy. You understand? So for years they were oppressed. They were misrepresented. They were treated filthily. They were despised. Do you not think that this would create a little mistrust in the hearts of blacks when they teach our children not to trust the white man? Do you understand why that is so? They see whites in riches and they having nothing. do not see a little mistrust of the white establishment. They saw that no politicians were black until like Obama and a few others, Clarence, Judge Clarence, all that times. These were the first blacks in great power after hundreds of years of oppression. And let us go back before that. The Roman Empire, which included England, Spain, and France, dissolved. But then what they do? These three nations, England, Spain, and France, they discovered Columbus and others discovered North America, South America, India, Africa, China, Australia. And what did they do? Conquered, annihilated, genocide, slavery, oppression. These are England, Spain, and France mostly. Portugal as well, others, but mostly England, Spain, and France. And for centuries, they oppressed the other peoples. The Europeans oppressed us underneath the Roman Empire. The Vatican ruled over them, and the Vatican ruled over Christianity. Yes, Luther separated the Protestants from the Catholics. Started Protestantism, Lutheranism. But then later, but then the Vatican and the Jesuits slowly brought back the Protestants underneath the Catholics. The RC Church of Vatican rules over every Christian denomination in secrecy. And over the United States, the Vatican rules over the United States in secrecy. But the United States, which I call Romerica, has conquered the world. It rules over the world. And this is not a positive thing. It does it in oppression, in militarism, using imperialism, backing up its economic welfare with the military, conquering whole nations, and putting in puppet dictators so they can strip the nation of resources to profit Americans. And they're very rich. The people are put into slave labor in those foreign nations with puppet dictators. And the news media and the press and the American white establishment will tell you that it is the puppet dictators doing the evil to their own people. No, because they are puppets to the American empire. The International Monetary Fund and the World Bank loans these nations billions of dollars to set up good infrastructures, but not enough money. They'll start the construction and then they cannot finish it. It is not enough money. So when they do ask for more, no, now you got to give us your oil for free or your resources for free. Your people must work for us for slave labor. You can stay as prime minister. We will give you riches, but the people must starve. We will strip your nation of its resources, enslave your people, and destroy them, but you remain in power. You will get riches. This is the modus operandi of the Romerican Empire. We are now on the cusp of a world war against Russia and China, and other nations allied, the Venezuelans that have been destroyed by the American Empire. You've been told was a good and prosperous nation, that we helped other nations. No, we did not help other nations. We were not beneficial. Yes, we helped Israel. We gave them half the contribution the U.S. gives to all the world goes to Israel, mostly in arms. We help other nations with military. We have had dozens of military wars and coups, about 80 wars and coups we've been involved with since World War II. My book shows that. The United States is not a good nation. We are not helping this world. We are destroying it for the profit of a few rich people and the prosperity of Americans as a whole to justify. The American people are not poor to justify the rich people's actions destroying the planet. And the Vatican, of course, does not serve a good God. They serve Satan. The back of your $1 bill makes it clear. You see a pyramid, land of slavery. Above the pyramid is an eye. The eye of Horus, also the all-seeing eye of Satan. And this is one nation under God. The seal of the United States having an eye of Satan above the pyramid representing nation, one nation under God. And underneath that pyramid it says Novus Ordo Seclorum, which is Latin, the language of the Roman Catholic Church, meaning New World Order. So you see, we're underneath the Catholic Church, and the God is Satan. Call him Jehovah, call him Jesus, call him Allah, call him whatever you want. He is Satan. Jews started worshiping Satan. They were not out there to conquer the whole world. But guess what? The Romans were. And before they worshipped him as Jehovah and Jesus, they worshiped him as Saturn. Close name to Satan, no? The New Testament was written by Josephus, a Pharisee who knew the Old Testament inside and out, who basically ran over to the Roman side in 70 AD, became a Roman, and wrote several books, including the New Testament. So, where do we get all this? We have here that when I was growing up, the blacks were all one side of the road. They were, this guy was arrested in reading a college textbook in our backyard and freedom. Now blacks have much more rights than they did years ago, and are at the forefront. But think about this: King and Malcolm X murdered, and the CIA or FBI were part of their murders, as well as killing Kennedy. Their protests in the 60s, 70s, that got them blacks' rights. It got them programs, give them free college, not free jobs, not new more jobs, just college. And you saw from the Occupy movement, Occupy Wall Street movement, that all college graduates get jobs. Not really. People are not. College programs and indoctrinates into the establishment's agenda, and a lot of it is lies, and you're programmed to believe it, to do as told to in the colleges. You're taught to be obedient, to be a sex slave, sex toy, to be obedient, to follow orders, to work for the rich man. And this is what college teaches. You're programmed, indoctrinated, and taught to be obedient, to follow the agenda, and to let them have sex with you. So this is why blacks are not so much in college. They hear from the few that went what goes on there. College is not beneficial except if you want lots of bright, shiny, glittery stuff. Riches and new cars and stuff you don't need. A big house, wear a suit, the uniform of the dominant class, a suit. You wear that, and you think that's a privilege, makes it better. You're choking on your tie, and you're showing that you're a slave by wearing a suit. You're richer. No, you're bought. Now let me go on. This is what Ehrlichman said. Ehrlichman was an aide to Nixon, the President Nixon. Ehrlichman said this. He was put in jail, by the way, for being part of the Watergate. And this is what Ehrlichman said when he got out of jail. He revealed what happened when Nixon made the war on drugs. And this is what Ehrlichman said himself. I will quote, "The Nixon campaign in 1968 and the Nixon White House after that had two enemies, the anti-war left in Vietnam and black people. We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or black, but by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities. We could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, and vilify them night after night on the evening news. Did we know that we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did." So you see, Nixon started the war on drugs to vilify blacks and anti-war protesters, the hippies. The hippies were associated with marijuana and the blacks with heroin. Bad people. Then guess what? The CIA brought in the drugs. The establishment brought in the drugs. They made sure they were out there, made sure the people used them, and to this day, crack has devastated the black community. And yes, the gangs don't, deal with it, but guess what? The CIA and us, they bring it in there. The church brings it in there. The establishment makes sure it is in there, and the gangs distribute it, and the people deal with it every day out in the streets. It's all over the place, and it is homelessness results, prison results. Now, you ask, why are there more people in prison than whites? More blacks in prison than whites percentage-wise. The Hamilton Project, and I looked this up on the internet, put out many places on the internet. I'm going to open up right now on the internet. The Hamilton Project shows that using drugs, about 16% of blacks use drugs and about 18% of whites use drugs. Selling drugs, an equal percentage of about 2% of both races. However, when it comes for drug-related arrest, black percentages of about 1.5% blacks are arrested for drug-related crimes, while only 0.4% of whites are arrested for drugs. So while a few more whites do drugs than blacks, 3 times as many blacks are arrested for drugs as whites. So there's a high problem there. For drug-related incarceration, about half of 1% of blacks arrested are incarcerated for drugs. So in other words, 1 out of 200 people are blacks are put in jail for drugs, while about only like one one 1/20th 1% of whites are. So in other words, more whites do drugs than blacks, but 3 or 4 times as many blacks are arrested for and incarcerated for drugs than whites. Should tell you that there's great systemic racism in the justice system, as the police know full well. They arrest many more blacks for drugs than they do whites, even though more whites do drugs than blacks. So you see, there is a reason. Now think of what that does to families. When blacks go to jail, especially the young males, when they go to jail for drugs or for other reasons made up by the police or done, they do crimes as well. But guess what? This is basically it ruins a family. The kids will never be able to work at a good job, because you know that employers check your criminal history, check your history of legal history, and you are not hired for a good job if you have a criminal history. So this also helps destroy blacks' chance for employment. It also separates them from their families. They cannot raise a family as well. Children are without fathers because of this. So you see the harm it does to the black community. It is done intentionally and deliberately by the establishment. Is there white privilege? Well, there's less white persecution of whites. In that way, there is white privilege right there. But let's go into it a little deeper. And let me remind you that America and the world is run by the Vatican Jesuits and the globalists, the Illuminati, which was formed by Adam Weishaupt, a Jesuit, in conjunction with Miriam Solbauer, the first in the Rothschild line. They started the Illuminati in 1776. And then they joined the Freemasons in 1782 at the Congress of Wilhelmsbad. Now, now, just to let you know that Albert Pike, who was an Illuminati, he was a Freemason, Illuminati, and he was a founder of the KKK. And, of course, the KKK, anti-black and all that. And these Illuminati, the same people that formed the KKK, the Ku Klux Klan, also rule the world. So you see, the world rule is against black people. They promote the welfare of the Europeans and the very rich. Now, the law is portrayed as good, and blacks are terrible in Hollywood and in television. The law, you see what they're doing on January 6th. They've been doing that to blacks for decades. Now they're starting on whites. And they're basically, and you notice how the news media, promotes hatred among the Democrat leftist wing. They promote hatred of whites, call them racist, and the so-called insurgency when it was a protest. Now they're promoting civil war. And the right wing, they tell you how drug addicted the blacks are, how the blacks are the racist ones, not whites. So you see they're causing division. This is intentional, deliberate. This is an establishment agenda, divide and conquer. Don't let us rise up against the establishment. Let's fight one another. Now you see their agenda. Now, let us go into some other stuff. I basically grew up in Bergen County, like white neighborhood and middle class, and when I saw all this stuff, I saw that police were killing blacks, unarmed blacks, killing for no reason. A black man sitting down eating his dinner, shot in the back by a cop. A man being apprehended by cops on the ground, on his back, not resisting, telling him to stop resisting. He wasn't resisting. They shoot him dead. He's not resisting. I've seen kid raises his hands, shot dead, nothing in his hands. Child with a toy gun, obviously a toy gun, a child. Cops shooting him dead. People in their sleeping caught in a raid, shot dead. If you're black, you are shot dead. And now also a few whites are being shot dead by the police. There is no reason for it except to spread fear police, so that you basically comply with everything they say and do, and let them oppress you and destroy you and put you in jail, and don't fight back because you could be murdered. Especially done to black people more than whites. So understand, there is an agenda with police, with the news, with the establishment against black people. Now, why don't the blacks go to college? Because they don't trust whites. There have been centuries of oppression, of slavery, of Jim Crow, of police incarceration. Would you trust white people? Come on, they don't trust us. And there's good reason for it. They don't want to be program indoctrinated. They see the program indoctrinated. They see what they're taught, how it's all about whites, how to make rich white people more rich. They can perceive that as I do also. Now, um, when I went, after I wrote Exposing the Money Machine, and I saw the evil, the white establishment, and I wanted to see about the black names. I had preached, when I was a Christian, I preached urban streets of Patterson, and I saw what the black community was like. I spent a month in a Patterson jail for my basic exposing cops and stuff, and and I saw the population. And by the way, the prisoners were not stupid people. One of them taught me concepts that no college teacher could have taught so well. The police were not smarter than them or better, and so then I did not want to live in Patterson, but I was scouting out Newark. Patterson has a lot of drug addiction, and the blacks, a lot of them are defeated. So I went to Newark, New Jersey, to see what that city was like, to scout it out. And I saw that they were angry there. They were like me, a little they were angry. They were defiant, and they were knowledgeable. So I wanted to live in Newark. And what I discovered when I went to rent in white suburbs, when I went to rent an apartment or whatever, they always wanted to know, how was I gonna pay? That was what mattered to them. Do you have a job? Do you have an income? Do you pay rent? Do you have debt? And that's what they wanted to know. When I wanted to live in Newark and applied for to rent a Newark apartment, what did they say? Did they ask about money? No. Well, a little bit, but not really. But they wanted to ask embarrassing information. Have you ever been in jail? Who's your family? What's your and then they checked right away in front of me. They checked to make sure everything I said was true. Why? Because the devil is a liar. And I do have perfect integrity. And they accepted me right away everywhere because they saw my character. I told them, yes, I've been in jail, and this is what the charges were. And they were embarrassing charges. They weren't true, but they were embarrassing. And I let them know everything. And these people, the blacks, know the character of policing. They know the justice system well. So when I told them about my incarcerations and the character, they accepted me right away because they checked up. They saw I was truthful. So let me ask you, which kind of population would you prefer? Those who care if you are able to make money, bright, shiny, glittery stuff, or those who basically want to know your character, if you are a truthful person, if you are a good person, who didn't want liars in their community, who didn't want people with bad character in their community? Which would you want to align with? Well, for me, it's a no-brainer. Now, they've been taught from generation to generation to not. Now let us get into celebrities. Now there's a lot of black athletes, and now they're bending the knee for anti-police brutality. Why? Because they lost business. I exposed them for basically not standing for what is right, and I basically I showed that the athletes, that sports is basically not that great a field, and that they were wussies for not standing up against the white establishment, a lot of the sports lost their fans and all the people watching them. They lost a lot of money that way. So now they all take a knee and they all stand for Black Lives Matter to make. Is it really because they care about black lives? No, what it's about is money. It's about having an audience and people paying to watch them, and buying the products of their shirts, the Nike shirt, the athlete shirts. It's all about the money. These athletes don't give a hoot for black people or for poor people. Some of the blacks may, but that now they all bend the knee. So this is all phony. It's all phony. It's all about the money, the assassin, and the people. Now, black celebrities, some do get rich. It's mostly through athletics or through rap or hip hop. That's how you get rich if you're black. And then I'll tell you, athletics does take a lot of hard work. These people are not lazy. The rap artists, just say a few words, know what to say, dress a few things. Yeah, you can get rich without having many brains or hard work, and many have. But they have noticed, even those who wanted to help the black community, even those who weren't greedy, wanting lots of bright, shiny, glittery stuff, even them were prevented from helping the black community in full. They could not donate or contribute or speak up even. The popular ones, the ones that made it really big, could not speak up and tell the truth, what's really going on, what the black people really feel, and how they're really being prosecuted, what the situation was really like. Why? Because they would lose it all. And they could even be murdered. Back in the day before people became general knowledge, back in the day, Jimi Hendrix, it is now shown that Jimi Hendrix did not choke on his own vomit or whatever, he was told drunkenness, whatever. He had been murdered. And it is suspected the reason he was murdered was because he respected the Black Panthers. And he's getting rich and famous. Jimi Hendrix, if you don't know, was in the 60s, put out a few albums. He was the greatest guitarist ever lived, a black man, and he had ties with the Black Panthers. He would have donated to them. He was a good man. And he was murdered. They thought he died choking his own vomit, drug induced, whatever. No, he was murdered. And this is what happens. You cannot, as a black man, get any big position and support and help black people. Obama, I call him Ori Obama. He was black in his skin, but inside he was like a white establishment. He didn't help black people. He attacked. But he went to Libya. We attacked Libya, an African nation. He's for black people. What would they do? Why? Because they want to promote a currency outside the dollar, and to be used all among African nations to get rid of the World Bank and the IMF's influence and destruction of the African nations. And he had escalated his country to great heights. It was the richest nation in the African continent, and it was because they wouldn't allow the IMF, the World Bank. He was giving up like $50,000 for a new house for his people, whoever wanted a house once they got married. He promoted education. He gave them free energy, good energy, better health system. He was a great leader, and we attacked them. Why? Because they're going to get out from underneath the American thumb, out underneath the U.S. Rule over Africa. He's going to free Africa from America. And that's why we attacked Libya underneath Ori Obama. He was no good. He's a black man. No, he's a black-skinned white man. He was doing what the real rulers wanted him to and did obediently because, like every other president and politician, he was a puppet. He wasn't really black. He was a traitor, just like every politician, including Trump, who said he was anti-establishment, but certainly was not. How many billionaires really help poor people or working class people? None of them. And neither would Trump. He was just a better liar than most. Now, why he wanted America first? America's always been America first. And what has it done is destroyed this planet. We have enemies in every nation is what we've done to them. Nobody loves America now except for maybe Israel and a few others, Canada, whatever. But they align with us out of fear that will destroy them if they don't. So you see what this is really about, the real agenda. And let's see what else. I brought up a few other ideas. Now, is there privilege for all whites? Of course not. I'm white. I'm not privileged. Understand though, I do not promote, wealth for black people. I do not say they should be given lots of wealth. I understand that there is goodness in being oppressed a little bit, and that you don't go into the evil white establishment and the sex and the drugs and everything. Part of the sex, it is corrupt, every bit of it. Money and sex. What is God about? As you see in the back of your $1 bill, and what is every God about? Baal, all gods. They're about prosperity and virility, money and sex. What is America about? Look into it. The American dream, money. What comes with everything you buy? You see flesh on a woman. You see skin on, women and sexy women on every commercial. So it is all about money and sex. That's what America is about. That's what even Christianity is about. Money and sex. The pastors do not preach like the Bible does, which says the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. You cannot love God and money. Many others say the pastors don't preach that. They're rich themselves. So understand. That's what America's about, prosperity and virility. Not about helping people. It's not about democracy or equality. It's about money for the rich and manipulate everybody else underneath it. Now, I don't promote riches for blacks. Welfare I agree with if you'll make good use of your life. Why are all these people homeless and drug addicted? because they don't have purpose in their life. Their lives are lost. They have no worth to them because they don't make purpose. They don't volunteer. They don't work to help humanity. Now, if they did, then they would prosper. Wouldn't be rich. Like I myself, I make do. I've been very privileged. I had a disability, and so I had a Social Security check. But despite this income I had, which is not good, I worked hard. I helped people. I have 45,000 hours at least of volunteer unpaid work. At least 45,000 hours, which is the worth of about 22 years of full-time work. I've also worked minimum wage jobs and some above that paid jobs. I was a case manager. I did lecture to graduate students of social work for 15 years, once or twice a year for 15 years. Under Professor Gene Yellen at Fordham University, I lectured to the students. I have been helping humanity, been a community organizer. I've been founding organizations, helped develop welfare reform for Governor Whitman here in New Jersey. I helped found Alliance Against Homelessness, help homeless mentally ill people. I've housed over 100 people, found housing for them. So I have helped humanity all my life for the past 35 years. Not many people do that, but all these people on welfare, they should be doing it. But instead, they're doing drugs, or because they are taught in the establishment it's all about money, not about people. The American dream is not about helping one another or promoting equality or justice. It's about money. So that is what's wrong. Our whole American agenda is our faulty concepts, lies, and deceptions. We're not a democracy. We're a hegemony, basically ruled by the rich, a plutocracy, an oligarchy. It's all a deception. And people, not all whites are racist. Few whites are racist. It is a white establishment. Blacks are oppressed. It's not so much white privilege as it's black oppression, still and to this day. And so you see, people, let's unite. Let us fight the oppressors, the evil ones in power. The rich people, the very rich, and the globalists. And guess what? Those people bought silver and gold. It will be worthless when the digital currencies, of course, it will not be based on gold or silver. The money, the people that invested in gold or silver to save their riches were foolish. The Wall Street does not care if you tell you that gold and silver is the way to go. These people don't love you. They work for the snake, the establishment of the Vatican, the United States governance, the real governance. So people, there it is. My books are Angry, Loud, and Clear Truth, The Untold Nature of Christianity, and Exposing the Money Machine. Michael Kahn, Kahn spelled K-A-H-N. So there we go. My talk today for Uniting Whites and Blacks and showing you what the nature of racism really is, and it is very real. And white privilege, white poor people don't have that privilege, but you don't have the oppression that blacks do experience. So that way, you do have white privilege that you're not exploited like blacks are. So there you are. Have a great day. Let's unite and fight the establishment.